Well, because it seems that I have subjective experiences, what people call
or biases.
Personal experiences, you know, I have subjective experience. That doesn't necessarily mean that, well, first of all, people define souls differently. For the Hindus, it's the Atman. For Jews, Christians, and Muslims, it's strong influence of the Platonic tradition, the idea of soul and a body. How do we define souls?
Dualism.
You know, I'm not so sure if the very idea
but
of
then
soul
the same thing can be said of mind. The same debates is like, what is the mind?
And so, that's right. And
So how would you like say yes to one and no to the other? We're still back in the same question.
Yeah, well, no, it's a good question. I mean,
I'm your student today. I'm going to ask the most annoying.
I'm here to learn as much as to talk. In fact, you know, these are topics that stumble, you know, that befuddle me. So it's not like I have the.
So do you believe in like this eternity of the mind? The mind is eternal.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know, but I mean,
so it's related to the man.
Listen, you know, when you watch someone have a stroke, you know, like I watched my father have a stroke, you know, or my late wife when she was sedated in the hospital and all of a sudden she no longer is responsive to the world. It seems to me that whatever this thing we call mind is, it's pretty heavily dependent upon the brain and nervous system. And when you watch someone, you know, have a stroke, have a brain damage, then you see they're just not functioning in the same level that someone that was not undergone those things. So that seems to suggest to me that our conscious experience is at least heavily dependent in some way or the other upon brain processing. So it's just difficult for me, not impossible, but difficult for me to imagine the continuity of the self beyond the pale of death. You know, once the body and the brain and the nervous system decays. You know, so I don't think mind's eternal.
So what changes
unless
in
you
this?
have the idea that even all matter is the crystallization of one great mind, like the Upanishads or some religious traditions say. You know, but I mean,
what about the independent process? He said because some of these themes is dependent on the processes.
Yeah.
He admits some is independent.
Yeah.
Ask him about that. Explain that.
When the mind dies.
Ask him.
He's a little bit, he's not always open-minded. You know,
So the soul.
I can't really, I'm not a scientist myself, I'm not even an amateur when it comes to science, but it's just that I can't
come back,
seem to get around that idea. I'm not ready to say that thought is nothing but brain activity. But I am ready to say whatever this thing called thought is, it seems to me.
What was soul?
Dependent upon brain activity.
Soul. Forget that soul. Talk to me about the soul.
What do you want to know
What
about
is it? What do you as a?
I hope I have.
Do you believe knowledge? Do you believe that philosophers?
I hope I have a soul.
Do you believe philosophers can attain ultimate truth?
I think they can keep trying.
Yeah. But for example,
I mean,
of the divine.
Of the divine.
From your experience, like
I'm at Speaker's Corner because I have witnessed some YouTube videos of speakers who have shown great acumen with the philosophical arguments. Some of them tend to be Muslim, you know, very impressive. That's why I came. You know, so I think that arguments for God can be. Some of them can be very powerful.
But in regards to the attributes of this God,
from the Greeks, you know, really the cosmological argument, but strained through.
Well, that comes from the Kalam. Okay, but
the Kalam argument has its roots in the Greeks. It's the Muslim version of the Kalam.
So, what was I saying? In regards to the attributes of a divine person, that can be attained by human inquiry.
I'm not so sure the divine can be said to be a person because you have different religious traditions.
Okay, let's keep it simple.
And Hindus,
divine.
The divine is not a person.
Let's say
for Jews, Christians, and Muslims, the divine is a person, unless you're part.
No, but the main part of the question is that can we, human inquiry, i.e., philosophy or so, can we determine with truth what is the attributes of God?
You know, that's a great question. You know, I'm impressed by some philosophers' ability to move in that direction. I'm on the fence about it.
Yeah.
You know, I see great arguments for and against that.
Like divine simplicity, for example.
Right,
the Greeks came with the idea of divine, that God has to be like simple.
Yes.
But this seems to go against the Bible.
That's a great point, and that's why you have a lot of.
And you got so many guys here as well, Christians, that believe in this divine simplicity. And I'm not sure if you guys know, is that God does not have attributes. He is his attributes. You probably say it much more eloquently than me.
Well, listen, I'm in the subway in New York, see the Muslims do the 99 names of God. I mean, clearly different attributes.
Yeah, we have different attributes, and we believe in something called sifat khabriya. Like Allah, He tells us how he is, because there's no one who is more knowing of Allah than himself and who he sends. But we don't believe that philosophy, we believe, has constraints, like all sciences.
You don't believe that what has constraints?
We believe that all sciences and knowledges has constraints.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of my beliefs is that you can't know the attributes.
Therefore, we have to rely on revelation.
Yeah, this is what they argue. The theologians argue
and
that.
I ask, out of all sincerity, not in any,
No
any
problem.
kind of. How do I know the Quran over Veda or Veda over,
Well,
over Torah?
this is your human inquiry, in the same way
Yeah.
you do, like as in a mind and body soul inquiry. Do a scriptural analysis. Who wrote this? When was it written? What was this? What's the oldest surviving manuscript? Who was this audience intended for? For example, let's say the Old Testament. This so-called old Torah, you think it was revealed by God to Moses, but then why does it speak about Moses in third person?
That's a great question.
Why does it say Moses died in the land of Moab?
That's right.
So-
That's why a lot of contemporary, and I mean contemporary, last few hundred years, Bible scholarship does not accept.
Yeah, they say there's about 4 different authors on the first 5 books of Moses. Same thing with the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, who authored this.
I understand. So you're going to say to me that you know that the Quran is a revelation of God to humanity.
More than I know these
Less
ones.
the prophet.
Yeah, this is my
I
position.
understand.
This is my position. So we say that the Prophet Muhammad was known by his own people whom he lived amongst for a lifetime that he was illiterate. In the Quran, it testifies there's no hadith that shows people argued. By hadith, even by historical documents or sayings from opposition, and there was plenty of them.
Would you say also Quran is at least mediated by human beings? You know, I mean,
Yeah, of course.
7th century Arabic. He didn't speak. I mean, of all the languages, it's kind of it's spoken. When Jibril first spoke to Muhammad in Mahir and in Mecca, it was of all possible 7th century Arabic, not Sanskrit.
No. The Arabic we have now is the same, but there are lahjats.
different.
No, listen. Trust me. There are lahjats, like as in this one's from Egypt, this one from Morocco, this one. But the Quran is in the same language. You look at the oldest manuscripts we have of this that date back to the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. The Sana manuscripts. We see the same Arabic.
You say then that you can know that the Quran is the true revelation of God to humanity because it's spoken in God's voice.
That's
as
one of
opposed
the
to
evidences.
Torah, the Veda,
Exactly. This is one of the evidence.
Upanishads.
So you have to do multiple inquiries.
Oh, excuse me, Renee. I see.
Like you have to do multiple analysis. Is this the voice of God? Does it sound like the voice of God? Or does it sound like the voice of someone who's speaking on behalf of Moses? Is this the voice of Mark, Matthew, Peter? You know, who was Hebrews?
And scholars will tell you that Matthew, Mark, and John didn't really write the Gospel of Matthew.
Exactly. So philosophy won't always determine certain things. So you might go to codiology or lexicography.
Your position is because philosophy goes to these dead ends and these
It goes
insurmountable
to-
questions. So therefore,
I wouldn't even say dead ends.
revelation.
I would say philosophy goes to split ends.
Okay.
Yeah, because once you get to one
Sure.
answer, there's like divine simplicity. So many arguments against it. But my question is, you're the lecturer or so? No, don't be humble. Don't be. No. I'm your student here.
I don't come with any of the
Why do you
answers.
think that Christianities, from your experience, leave the idea of the biblical God, a biblical God that has like a face, a head? No. The face, the head. Why do they deny all of his attributes and now say he is his attributes? They say here God without body, parts, and passions, without potential as well. These terms are obviously loaded, but I'm assuming you're aware about these terms.
Okay.
Like for example, potential, that God does not act. He does not do like sifa fi'aliyah.
Yeah.
He is his action. This is what they say. He is not. But
you know that Muslim philosophers also draw upon the Greeks.
yes. And
Al-Farabi didn't
yeah.
space. He
So
comes to
yeah. So we say that this is. We say that this part is madmum, is something which is like he's straight. And where is initially when the Muslim philosopher, or the Muslims rather, came into encounter with like Ja'ad bin Dirham or Safwan bin Safwan, I forget his full name anyway, but they came into contact with philosophers. And in order to argue with the philosophers, they took their language. Like when Aristotle, he writes Maqulat al-Ashr, the 10 categories. Are you familiar with this?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's got arad and he's got jawahir. Yeah, it's like one is the essence. Of the 10, one thing is the essence. The other 9 are called contingents in English. Yeah, arad. So then the philosophers that came afterwards depended on him. Plotinus, for example, he depended on this language that Aristotle invented. So arad is incidental.
Plato.
No. Plotinus.
Plotinus, yeah.
Yeah, not Plato.
The Aeneas.
Yeah, huh?
The Aeneas, Plotinus, and Plotinus.
Yeah, not Plato though, not
No,
Plato.
but he was a Platonist.
Yeah, Neoplatonist. Yes, sorry. I thought you said he was. Yeah. So he came with the idea that God does exist, but he drew from the works of Aristotle. The one. Yeah. That's right. In Enid, he mentioned. Yeah.
Would say that that's God.
Yeah. No. The God of Plato and Aristotle is not the same.
But Plotinus saw himself strictly. Look, Plotinus doesn't matter. Plotinus,
The
author of the Aeneas, 3rd century AD, Neoplatonism,
yeah.
the apostases, the one. But he saw himself as a Platonist.
Neoplatonist. That's right.
What I'm saying is, for him it was the one.
Yeah.
Even Jews, Christians, and Muslims would absorb that into their religious tradition.
Not all Muslims. Sects and parts of Muslims. Yeah, the Shia, Sufism, they would say it's a tariqah, but you're thinking in terms of creed, you're talking about the Asharis, you may the Asharis, the Mu'tazila, and the Kila. Huh?
No, again,
Like, so there are parts on Muslims that have absorbed this. But generally, we are people who believe that God has spoken. And this is what I was saying to you or asking you before. Do you think philosophy can determine ultimate truth, like the attributes of God?
I think philosophy is the open-ended project to try to approximate truth.
Approximations.
I'm not a Cartesian who thinks that we can find indubitable truth and build up from that. I think philosophers are simply, always on the way. I'm not sure they reach anywhere, but they're always on the
So that's
way.
what they say about Ghazali. Ghazali, he's saying that he was one of the philosophers that reached the very heights of philosophy, but they say he died with a copy of Sahih Bukhari on his book. Some say that in his works he says that he returned to his people like a child, meaning that he relied so much on human inquiry or philosophy, but the reality, he believed that God spoke. And he, one who climbed the very heights of philosophy, returned to saying that the Quran and Sunnah are the best ways, the khabari, that God has spoken.
Well, I thank you, and I actually have my little copy of the Quran I picked up from someone.
Yeah.
It was a great conversation.
Yeah. We didn't get your name.
I'll be around, and maybe I'll come back. And we'll
Definitely.
Yeah, but no, I don't think.
You've got yours, yeah?
Say again?
You've got the Quran, yeah?
Yeah, I got it here.
Yeah?
I took one earlier.
Yeah, because philosophy leaves you more questions than answers. So it's like, at what point?
I believe in the Socratic tradition. I'm wise because I know I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But you must
Socratic
make a
tradition.
decision at one point. We don't know if we live tomorrow.
It's true.
Every single soul shall die. But we have to live. We have to act as we will live tomorrow.
I agree.
So in our creeds and our belief, we believe that we also have to act even more. Because God is the greatest being that we can,
Yeah, I mean, certainly I've done a lot of traveling, 6 journeys through India, China, I've been, all over, and I find myself amongst those who are every bit as fervent as you are, which is a compliment, not an insult. But within, from the Jains, the Buddhists, the Hindus, I'm a little bit less certain I know that we're the right path.
Besides what he said, Islam also has the best independent reasoning. So we talk about from a historical point of view, we talk from a psychological point of view, sociological point of view, we talk about the preservation. All these other institutions, Islam also has the strongest case besides the people from he said. So it's not even painful in the sense there's also other religions, right? Because there's also many independent reasons behind what he said.
And sorry for what comes across like a snob.
No, you've been very polite. No way.
Had you been born in a Jain heritage?
For New Yorker, that's great.
Do you believe actually? Because you never said that at any point.
It said Jewish originally, by tradition.
Studied the religion of philosophy of religion.
There must be an outcome, an answer.
Right.
I'm curious. I've heard you for 20 minutes, but I don't know what you believe.
Well, I did a lot of listening too, and I just.
What is it
I'm
you believe?
still kind of on the way, I've not settled on anything, but I'm not one who thinks that you necessarily have to find what you think is the answer. I do have that. Sorry to sound like I'm talking.
No. Everyone's fine.
Sense of wonderment.
Feel free comfortable.
Well, I don't,
Feel comfortable. It's not New York. It's not New York.
Right. So no lightning struck me yet.
I completely disagree with you. I think you have to stand on what you believe. If you don't know what you believe in, then you're going to...
I see. see. I got you.
This is the only book which declares
no, I
it's not
understand. It's fair to say, but of course,
that's
okay,
what
so it's not, I believe in open-ended inquiry. You know, I believe in being
Yeah.
attentive.
Excuse me.